Hey, this is Michael Zwick. I'm with my friend Pastor Dana Coverstone, and we are over in Burkesville, Kentucky at Living Word Assembly of God. And Pastor Dana is the guy who had all of the dreams back in 2020, and instantly they went viral and they blew up. I think you said it to 1,100 people on your Facebook page.
People, yeah. And a week later, 1 million people saw it, then 3 million, and who knows how many as of today. So
yeah. So here we are. We actually had Pastor Dana preach at a revival that we did, the Burlington Revival, back in 2022. Did a great job. Saw some real revival. But I'm back up here in Burkesville, Kentucky today because Pastor Dana, you said you woke up the other morning and the Lord spoke to you. Is that right?
Sometimes I dream every night, but this morning I woke up and I heard very clearly, not audibly, just in my spirit, listen intently today. Listen intently today. And my thought was, well, the hearings for RFK Jr. start this morning, so that's probably some of it. Didn't expect a plane crash by the end of the day, but they're in Washington. But I do my best to listen. I believe that God speaks to us today, that we can hear His voice. Jesus said, the sheep know my voice. So woke up with that thought. I even said on my Pray With Me podcast, I said, folks, what I'm hearing in my spirit today is listen intently today. Listen intently today. And so I told the folks online about it as well. So hopefully they were listening as well.
Yeah, that's good. And so what happened was there was a helicopter that ran into, was it an airplane or something like that?
American Eagle airplane.
Now, there's some conspiracy theories out there about this. I mean, there's some people who think there may be some fishiness or whatever. I mean, what do you feel?
All I know is that the facts that we know is that a military aircraft took down an American Eagle over Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And I think there's a whole lot of, without conspiracy theories or weirdness, there's enough stuff right there in the factual things that should say, hey, pay attention to this, attention to this. And of course, when I listened mostly to the situation with the hearings in RFK, and I saw the vitriol, I saw the hatred, I saw the absolute demonic manifestations in some of our Democratic senators who obviously hated RFK, hated his stance. I mean, they're arguing about onesies. And, I actually went on Facebook and said, I'm looking for an adult onesie that will challenge people who hate free speech. But so you watch that and you realize that this is the battle that we're in. You see the crazy things happening. But then when you see the video, I probably, from 5 minutes after that helicopter crash with airlines, I probably had 100 emails, text messages. Did you see this? You're watching this? You're watching this? And so you flip on your phone to the news, and you're just like, oh my goodness, what's happened? And by that time, all they knew was Apache helicopter hit American Eagles, where it was coming from, and they're trying to figure it all out. And you see the video, and you see the explosion, and you know it's over the Potomac River, and you're thinking, and I began, well, how do you listen? All you're doing is watching. But yet God can speak to us through the things that we see. God can speak to us through the things that we encounter. And I went to bed that night after watching the news for another hour and a half, just thinking, okay, Lord, what am I supposed to see in this? What am I supposed to hear? And it wasn't anything prophetic. It wasn't a dream. It was just, look at the facts. And the facts were an American military helicopter took out an American Eagle over Washington, D.C. Yeah. And you think, wow. It's not a conspiracy theory.
Right.
It's just the lay it on the ground facts. And then we as American Christian have to say, okay, Lord, what does this mean? Is this a sign? Is there something symbolic about this? Or is there more? Because a lot of people in the church world were very excited that Trump's in office. And I'm thankful. I voted for Trump, no doubt about that. Done that twice now. Actually done that.
I've done it three times.
Three times. Yeah. But and I know all three counted. But but there's a whole lot of folks making out like now, and even the term's been thrown out there, golden age. But after I saw what I saw with the Democratic senators, and it was just ugly. And all of the hearings have had their ugly moments. And you see the heart of some of the senators. You see all these calls to fight Trump's agenda in the streets and this and that. And you see people rising up to fight the efforts that Trump has to do things with America.
That's right.
And so the swamp hasn't been drained. The deep state is still there. And I think a lot of folks that just think everything's going to be fine and dandy. It's going to be candy and puppies and 2 chickens in every pot and rainbows everywhere.
So the enemy doesn't give up without a fight.
Oh, no. And it reminds me of Caleb in Joshua chapter 14 and verse 11. Joshua and Caleb were the 2 men out of the 12 that saw the land and said, we can do it. The other 10 were like, no, there's giants there, there's this, there's that, we can't do it. And so Joshua and Caleb spent 40 years in the wilderness with all these, and they could have been like, those people were bums, man, they wouldn't listen to us, and here we are, we're stuck with it. And these are the only 2. I mean, there was an average of about 90 people per day dying and being buried in the wilderness for that 40 years. Yeah. And yet, these 2 guys could have been angry, could have been cynical, but listen to what Caleb says. He says, I'm still as strong today as I was in the day Moses sent me. As my strength was then, so my strength is now for war and for going out and coming in. Now then, give me this hill country about which the Lord spoke on that day. For you heard on that day that Anakim were there with great fortified cities. Perhaps the Lord will be with me, and I shall drive them out as the Lord has spoken. In other words, he wasn't cynical. And that's what gets me the most about Caleb. Caleb could have been angry. He could have been bitter. He could have been cynical. But here he is, almost 45 years later now, and he says, nothing's changed. Yep. God's promise hasn't changed. God's word hasn't changed. I want the hill country. Joshua, give it to me. Give it to me right now. I'm going to take. And I know there's giants still there. I don't care. Yeah. Maybe God will give it to me. Yeah. And it was just, that's what the church is going to have to do. The church is going to have to say, you know what? Hard times are coming. Tough things are going on. But we don't focus on it, And so for that 40 years in the wilderness, those 2 guys kept their heads. Mm-hmm. And even though they went through various, we can say it this way. We've gone through incredible administrations in government in Washington, D.C., that didn't do the things we wanted them to do, who weren't sensitive to the things of God, who took us further from the truth of God's word, who enacted crazy laws and crazy policies and protocols. But yet, these guys toughed it out. And they outlasted every single man. Mm-hmm. Think every single man that crossed in the promised land, or in the wilderness, they didn't see it. Mm-hmm. Joshua and Caleb did. Mm-hmm. And that's because they were tenacious. They said, okay, God, you said we're going. We have to wait 40 years, we'll wait 40 years. Mm-hmm. And I hope the church can look at Caleb and Joshua's example and say, you know what? Yeah, we're not going to have wins every single Congress. We're not going to have wins with every single president. And I do think we're in for some really, really hard times. I think economic collapse is on the way. We can't keep spending like we're spending. And all this stuff is going to start coming out more and more as the people in this administration dig stuff up. People are going to be angry. Mm-hmm. Dave Hodges had an article just yesterday about Viet Cong-style uprisings in rural America and how people are just angry. And then, what Booker did this week basically was calling for a civil war against those in power and so it's going to be tough. And yet, if we stand strong in the Word and we...
Can you imagine if a conservative had said the same thing?
Oh my! They would have been tarred and feathered, thrown in prison, thrown in jail. Yeah, and so I hope the church is awake enough to realize that they're going to fight Trump 10 times as hard this time as they did the first time. And it's not going to be cheese balls and crackers all the time. It's going to be hard stuff. And we're going to have to maintain our faith, maintain our example, share the hope that we have in Jesus with the watching world, and do everything we can, and pray like we never prayed before. There's a lot of folks who've already said, well, Trump's in power now, we don't need to pray anymore. You need to pray more now. Right. You need to pray more than you ever prayed about this, because things are crazy.
Yeah, I was reminded of a story. It's a true story. It actually happened in, there were some Confederate soldiers, a Confederate band from Athens, Alabama, and they marched up to Nashville, Tennessee, and they found out that the Union Army, which was much bigger at that time, they sent out a spy. And so what they would do is every time they would send out a spy, somebody from the Confederate Army, they would gather all of their soldiers together and they would go into that one area. And they did this about 10 times. So the Union thought that the Confederate Army was a lot bigger than it actually was. Oh. And I think sometimes we may look at the devil like that. We may think that the devil is a lot bigger than he actually is, but our God is greater. Our God is greater.
He
and
is.
So, in the closing seconds, Pastor Dana, I just want to thank you for doing this, and God bless you, man.
Hey, thanks for coming all the way to
Yeah,
Brooksville.